I don't even know where to start. I've been staring at my notes for like an hour and it's a lot. I'm Sharon. I'm 42 and for 15 years I thought my marriage was just normal, boring even. Honestly, my life for the last few years has basically been one giant checklist. I'm the one who remembers gym day on Tuesdays, the dog's heartworm pill, all that stuff. I actually spent my entire Tuesday morning arguing with some lady at the insurance company. Sounded like she was calling from a wind tunnel, trying to explain that the hospital was in network, so the anesthesiologist should be too. They still wanted me to pay $1,200 for something that happened 3 years ago. Just a total waste of a morning. And the house was falling apart. The AC in the hallway started making this awful grinding noise, like there was a blender full of rocks in the vents. I kept telling Mark we needed to call someone, but he'd just say it was fine and to change the filters. My day is usually just the same thing. Wake up, get the kids ready, fight with the garage door opener, which has been glitching for weeks, by the way, and then run errands. Last Thursday I went to the store. I had a bunch of returns in the trunk, and I just wanted a coupon for the kids' sneakers. Because I'm not paying full price for shoes they'll grow out of in like 2 seconds. While I was in line, I was checking my email for tax forms. I couldn't find the folder and I was kind of panicking. Just scrolling through my inbox, and that's when I saw it. It was just a notification from our shared iCloud. Mark has his iPad synced to mine for the kids' movies in the car. A notification popped up, new calendar event. Dinner at 7 p.m. The Ritz. We don't do places like that. We do Taco Tuesday or whatever is on sale at the grocery store. Mark told me he was working late that night to finish a project for his firm, so I just figured it was a client dinner. I didn't even think about it much. I just deleted the notification and went back to looking for my forms. Then Friday happened. The elementary school's spring gala. It's one of those things where you have to dress up and bid on baskets of homemade cookies. I was exhausted. I'd spent the morning fighting with the whack guy, who told me the motor was shot, and then I had to clean up spilled juice in the mudroom. Mark showed up late. He kissed my cheek and told me traffic was a nightmare. I just nodded. I didn't have the energy to argue. We were standing there with these plastic cups of lukewarm cider. And I was talking to another mom about daycare prices. Mark had left his phone on the banquet table, and the screen lit up. It was a Life 360 notification. We use it for the kids and Mark has it too, mostly so I know he hasn't crashed his car on the way home. But the alert wasn't for the kids. It was a location arrival notification. I looked at the phone, then I looked at Mark. He was 3 feet away from me, talking to the PD president. The app thought he was at the hotel. Right then. I don't know, maybe it was a glitch. But then another notification popped up. A text from a contact saved as Mike Contractor. I didn't make a scene, I just froze. I honestly think I stopped breathing for a second. I didn't even look at him. I just picked up the phone. He didn't notice, took a screenshot of the text and the location alert and sent them to myself. Then I put the phone back. I spent the rest of the night smiling. I actually nodded and listened to the PTA president talk about the new playground equipment. I kept thinking about that grinding noise in the vents, and the lady from the insurance company, and the fact that my husband was apparently spending our money at a fancy hotel. When we got home, Mark was in a great mood. He was talking about how productive his week was. He went to shower and I went into the kitchen. I didn't touch the phone. I went for the iPad. Since the iCloud is shared, everything is there. I opened Find My to see where this Mike person lived. Then I opened the banking app. We have a joint savings account for emergencies, roof repairs, college, the AC. I scrolled through the transactions. There was a charge from 3 days ago. $1,200, the Ritz-Carlton. Then $800 at a jewelry store. And then I saw a transfer of $15,000 from our savings to an account I didn't recognize. I just sat there at the counter. The house was quiet, except for the AC in the hallway, still making that annoying clicking sound. I heard the shower turn off. He was humming in the bathroom. I didn't say anything. I took the iPad, walked into the bathroom, and slid it across the wet tile floor to his feet. I left it open on the transfer. Mark looked down at it, then looked at me. He didn't say anything for a long time. He was just standing there in a towel, dripping water everywhere. "What the hell are you doing with my tablet?" he asked. I just looked at him. "Who is Mike?" I asked. He didn't even move for a minute, just stood there dripping water all over the bathroom tile, staring at the iPad. Then he let out this sigh, not like he was caught, but more like I was just being annoying. Seriously, Sharon? You're going through my stuff. I didn't move, I just asked, "Who is Mike?" He didn't even blink. He told me Mike was a contractor and that he was looking into some commercial properties for the firm. A side investment, he called it. Wait, did he call it a side investment or a venture? No, investment. He mentioned some guy named Robert, who was the advisor, and said it was all legal and for our future, but he just didn't want to stress me out with the details until it was done. I just looked at him. I asked if commercial property investments usually required dinner at the Ritz and $800 in jewelry. He actually laughed. Just this little smirk. He told me it was a closing gift for a client, and that I was being jumpy. Then he said, "I've been stressed with the kids and the house," and was imagining some kind of soap opera. I could see a smudge on the bathroom mirror that had been there for weeks, and it was driving me crazy that he never bothered to wipe it. Like it's one swipe of a cloth. But he just ignores it. "Just business," he said. He picked up the iPad, wiped a drop of water off the screen with his towel, and looked bored. He told me I should probably take a nap because I was imagining things, and then he just walked out to put on his pajamas. Anyway, I didn't say another word. No screaming, no throwing things. I just went back into the kitchen and sat there. I just kept thinking about this Robert guy and the managed account. The next few days were just weird. Mark was suddenly being way too helpful. He offered to take the kids to soccer and actually unloaded the dishwasher without me asking. But I could tell he was watching me, just waiting to see if I actually bought the investment story. I didn't. Wednesday morning was a total nightmare. I spent 2 hours on hold with the health insurance company just to talk to a supervisor about an anesthesiologist bill. I had the phone pinched between my ear and my shoulder while I was trying to deal with a pile of Amazon returns in the living room. 3 boxes of stuff, a toaster that didn't work, kids, pajamas that were the wrong size, and the printer kept jamming while I tried to print the return labels. I'm fighting with the printer. The insurance lady is telling me for the 5th time that the claim was denied because of a coding error. And I'm just losing my mind. Then I remembered the Apple CarPlay. Mark has a newer SUV. And since we share an iCloud account, some of the recent destinations sync across devices. I never really looked at it, because I don't care where he goes for work. But I noticed I still had the Find My app open on my phone while I was on hold. I clicked over to his car. He wasn't at the firm. He was at a residential address in a suburb about 20 miles away. He'd been there 3 times in the last 2 weeks. Always around 2 exact time. He told me he was in back-to-back briefings. I didn't call him. I just took a screenshot of the address and wrote it on a sticky note. I stuck the note right on the pile of Amazon boxes I needed to take to Kohl's. Thursday was the day. I had to go to Kohl's anyway, because I had a coupon for the kids' sneakers, so I figured I'd just swing by the address on the way. The return line at Kohl's was an absolute disaster. The lady behind the counter was moving so slowly, and the guy in front of me was arguing about a store credit. I stood there for a minute holding my coupon, thinking about the $15,000 gone from our savings. God, why does Kohl's always smell like old pretzels and floor wax? It's honestly nauseating. Everyone around me was just doing their boring shopping. And I was standing there knowing my life was falling apart. Once I got the refund, I drove to the address. It was a townhouse. Modern, very clean. I parked a block away and just sat there for about 20 minutes. Then I saw Mark's car pull into the driveway. He wasn't alone. There was a woman in the passenger seat. She looked younger than me, maybe early 30s. She wasn't some hot mistress type. She was just wearing a gym set with her hair in a messy bun. She looked normal, which almost made it worse. I watched them get out. He didn't just give her a quick kiss. He held her, like really held her. You could tell they were actually happy to see each other. I didn't jump out of the car or start screaming. I just pulled out my phone and took a video of them walking into the house together. Then I drove home. When I got back, I realized it lost the W-2 form from last year, or was it the 1099? No, definitely the W-2. I started stressing out because tax season was coming up and I'm the one who handles the filing. I was ripping through the filing cabinet in the office, throwing folders everywhere, just trying to find that one piece of paper. While I was digging, I found a folder at the very back of the drawer. It wasn't labeled. I opened it and found some printed emails. They weren't from Robert. They were from a woman named Alina. And they weren't about commercial properties. They were about a lease. Mark had been paying for a small apartment in the city for 6 months. He wasn't just seeing her, he had this whole second setup. The managed account was just a slush fund. He'd been transferring money out of our joint savings to pay for her rent, her car insurance, and those Ritz dinners. I sat on the office floor, surrounded by tax documents and old utility bills. The garage door was acting up again, and I could hear it rattling in the background, just clicking and failing to close all the way. Then I heard the front door open. "Hey honey, I'm home," Mark called out. I stopped by the store. "I got those steaks you like for dinner." I didn't answer. I just stayed on the floor. I waited until he came into the office. He was smiling and holding a grocery bag. He looked completely normal. "What are you doing on the floor?" he asked. "Looking for those tax forms I told you. I could help you find them." I didn't look up. I just reached over to the desk, picked up my phone, and hit play on the video of him and Alina. I held the phone up so he could see the screen. His face just went blank. "Sharon, look, it's not I can explain," he started. I didn't let him finish. I just pointed to the folder of emails on the floor. "Who is Robert Mark?" He stopped talking. He just stood there, holding the bag of steaks, staring at the emails. I looked at the garage door, which had finally given up and slid halfway open, letting in a draft of cold air. I told him to get the steaks out of the bag and get out of my house. So, Mark is gone. He basically bolted after I showed him the video. Though he did try to grab his gym bag and his favorite charger on the way out, he didn't even take the steaks. He just left them sitting on the kitchen counter in a plastic bag, and I honestly just left them there for a few hours because I couldn't even look at them. The next morning was just a disaster. I woke up, and the first thing I heard was that whack unit again. It wasn't grinding anymore. Now it was this high-pitched whistling sound, like a tea kettle that wouldn't stop. I'd already called the guy Greg, and he told me he'd be over between 8 a.m. and noon. Of course, it was 11:45 when he actually showed up. While I was waiting for him, I tried to check the Ring camera. I wanted to see if Mark had come back to the driveway, or if he was lurking around. I opened the app and it just said battery low. I actually yelled. I literally screamed at my phone. I had just replaced those batteries 4 months ago. I don't know why they die so fast, but it was just one more thing. Anyway, Greg gets here. He's wearing those blue plastic booties over his shoes, and they keep squeaking on the hardwood in the hallway. It was almost as annoying as the whistling. He's standing there, looking at the vent, and I'm just behind him, staring at the iPad on the counter. I hadn't slept. I'd spent the entire night in the office. Once the shock of the cheating wore off, I started thinking about the money. $15,000 is a lot. But for Mark and his partner, it's not life-ruining. But the way he'd hidden it, the managed account. The Robert guy, it felt too calculated. Like he was following a script. So, while Greg is poking around in the vents and complaining about the ductwork, I go back into the shared iCloud. Mark and his partner, Anthony M. Paul, use a shared Dropbox for their firm. I've never had a reason to go in there before. I don't care about blueprints or zoning laws. But I remembered Mark had synced the Dropbox to the iPad for when he was showing clients things. I spent forever clicking through random folders. I found a bunch of boring stuff: office rents, software subscriptions, a weird memo about the office coffee. I was honestly about to give up when I saw a file that wasn't named like the others. It was just called external consulting. I opened it. It was a list of payments. There were monthly payments of $5,000 going to an LC called Vance Strategic Partners. Vance, Elena's last name is Vance. I stood there for a minute. I could hear Greg in the hallway, saying something about restricted airflow and mold potential. But I didn't hear a word of it. I just kept scrolling. The payments weren't coming from Mark's personal slush fund. They were coming from the firm's primary operating account. And the person authorizing the transfers? Anthony M. Paul. I'm not an accountant, but it was pretty obvious. Anthony wasn't just the business partner. He was the one paying Alina. I just felt numb. I was way past sadness. It was just this sudden realization. Mark thought he was the one with the secret life. He thought he was some big shot with a mistress and a hidden apartment. But he was just being paid to be distracted. I closed the iPad and walked into the hallway. "Is it fixed?" I asked Greg. "Almost," he said. "Just gotta tighten this bracket. You want me to check the outdoor unit while I'm at it?" "Sure's," I said. As soon as he walked out the front door, I called Anthony. Anthony is, well, he's the polished one. High-end suits, perfect hair. The kind of guy who knows exactly which fork to use at a fancy dinner. He answered on the second ring. "Sharon." "Hi, I heard about the situation," he said. He had that fake customer service voice that makes you want to punch someone. "I am so sorry. Mark is a great guy, but he's clearly going through something. Is there anything I can do? Do you need help with the kids?" "I don't need help with the kids, Anthony," I said. "I need to know why you're paying Alina Vance $5,000 a month." There was a pause. Not a long one, but enough. I could tell he was trying to figure out how much I knew. "I'm sorry," he said. "Who is Alina Vance?" "Don't do that," I said, looking at the external consulting spreadsheet in the Dropbox right now. "I see the transfers, I see the LC. Just tell me what the hell is going on." He sighed. The nice guy act just vanished. "Look, Sharon," he said. "Mark is a liability. He's talented, sure, but he's impulsive. The firm was growing, and we were about to bid on the waterfront project. I couldn't have him spiraling or making a scene right when we were closing the biggest deal in the firm's history." "So you paid a woman to date him?" I asked. "I provided a distraction," he said, sounding completely unapologetic. "I found someone who could manage him. Keep him occupied and happy, in a way that didn't interfere with the office. I knew exactly where he was and who he was with. It kept him out of the way, so I could actually run the company." I just stared at the wall. I was thinking about the Ritz-Carlton, the jewelry. Mark thought he was in love. He thought he'd found this amazing younger woman who actually understood him. And all the while, his business partner was basically paying her a salary to keep him on a leash. "And the $15,000 he took from our savings?" I asked. "He probably thought he was being generous," Anthony said. "Alina probably told him she had a financial emergencies or needed help with a lease. She's very good at her job." "You paid her to bleed us dry," I said. "I paid her to ensure the stability of the firm," he corrected me. "And honestly, Sharon, you should be thanking me. If he hadn't been so focused on her, he might have spent that money on something even stupider, or spent more time at home complaining about the fuck." I actually laughed. "I didn't mean to, but I did. It was just so absurd him filing for divorce," I said. "I'd expect nothing less," Anthony said. "And just a heads up, Mark doesn't actually own as much of the firm as he thinks he does. I've been adjusting the equity splits in the internal documents for a while now. When the lawyers get involved, you'll find that his buyout is going to be modest." He sounded so proud of himself. I could tell he was smiling. "I'll talk to you soon, Sharon," he said, and he hung up. I sat down at the kitchen table. I felt like I was vibrating. I looked over at the bag of steaks, which was now starting to smell. I got up, grabbed the bag, and shoved it deep into the trash can so I wouldn't have to see it. Then I went back to the iPad. If Anthony thought he was the only one who could use a controlled environment, he was wrong. I started digging through the administrative folder again. But this time, I wasn't looking for Alina. I was looking for the waterfront project. I found the bid documents, the correspondence with the city council, and then I found a subfolder labeled Expense Reimbursals. Up. Anthony Paul. I spent the next 3 hours scrolling. I didn't even notice that Greg had finished with the whack and left. The whistling had stopped. But now there was this weird rhythmic thumping coming from the vents. I didn't care. I found it. Anthony hadn't just been paying Alina. He'd been skimming. He was charging consulting fees to the firm for work that was never done, funneling money into a separate offshore account. He'd been doing it for 2 years. He wasn't just running the company, he was looting it. He'd set up Mark to be the fall guy. If anyone ever found the missing money, Anthony could just point to Mark's unstable behavior and his mistress. He could make it look like Mark had been the one, stealing from the firm to fund his affair. The distraction wasn't just to keep Mark out of the way, it was to create a paper trail of guilt that led straight to Mark. I took screenshots of everything. Every transfer, every fake invoice, every email where Anthony told Alina to keep him occupied during the waterfront negotiations. I didn't call a lawyer. Not yet. I opened my email and started a new message to the board of directors and the city council representative for the waterfront project. I attached every single screenshot. I attached the video of Mark and Alina. I attached the spreadsheet of the payments. In the body of the email, I didn't write some long emotional letter. I just wrote, "Here's the proof that Anthony Paul is stealing from the company. See attached evidence of embezzlement and corporate fraud regarding the waterfront project bid." I hit send. I sat there for a second. The house was quiet. The only sound was the thumping in the vents in the garage door, which finally decided to close. But it did it with this loud, screeching metallic sound that echoed through the whole house. About 10 minutes later, my phone started blowing up. First, it was Mark. He sent me a text. "Sharon, please, I'm sorry, let's just talk, I love you." I deleted it. Then it was Anthony. He didn't text. He called. I didn't answer. I just watched the phone vibrate on the granite counter. It moved a few inches to the left, then a few inches to the right. I got up and went to the living room. I saw the pile of Amazon boxes I still hadn't taken back to Kohl's. I looked at the return labels and I realized I'd printed one of them wrong. The ink was smudged and the barcode was barely readable. I sighed. I walked over to the printer, opened the paper tray, and realized it was out of ink again. I stood there for a minute, staring at the empty ink cartridge. I stood there for a minute looking at the printer, and I actually started laughing. It wasn't even a real laugh. Just this weird wheezing noise. Everything was a mess. 2 careers gone, 20 years of marriage down the drain. And I couldn't even print a return label for some kid's sneakers. The printer was making this high-pitched clicking sound, like it was trying to chew through a piece of plastic. I think it's the rollers. I've told the kids 1,000 times not to shove the paper in so haphazardly, but they never listen. Now the tray is slightly crooked, and it's driving me insane. I left it alone. I didn't have the energy to drive to a print shop. I just walked back to the kitchen and sat down. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating. "Anthony." I let it ring. He texted, then called again, then texted. "Sharon, please. This is a misunderstanding. We can fix this. I can make this right for you and the children. Just call me." I didn't. I just opened the location app again. He was at his office, but the little blue dot was just circling in the parking lot. He was probably pacing. Wait, was it Tuesday? No, Wednesday. The next morning, I got an email from the board of directors. They wanted a formal statement and a copy of all the documents he'd sent. I called a lawyer, Sarah, who handles high-asset corporate divorces. I told her everything. I didn't do the whole heartbroken sobbing thing. I just gave her the folders, the embezzlement screenshots, and the video of Mark and Alina. Sarah was straightforward. She didn't waste time with the "I'm so sorry" stuff. She just looked at the files and told me it was a gold mine. We weren't just asking for half. We wanted the house, the primary accounts, and a massive settlement because of the money. He'd moved around. "What about the embezzlement?" I asked. "That's your leverage," Sarah said. "Anthony will do anything to keep this from becoming a criminal case. He'll pay almost anything to keep you from talking to the DA." For the next 2 weeks, I just existed. Drove the kids to soccer, dealt with the usual house chaos, and the whole time, Mark was trying to get back in. He started sending these long, rambling emails, since I'd blocked his number. In them, he was suddenly seeing the light. He told me Alina had manipulated him, and that he was actually the victim of her psychological games. I'd read those while doing something mindless around the house and just delete them. Then, on a Tuesday or maybe it was a Monday, Mark just showed up. No call, no text, he just walked up the driveway. I saw him on the camera and just watched him stand there for a minute. He looked like hell. He'd lost weight, and his suit was wrinkled, like he'd slept in his car. I opened the door, but I didn't let him in. "Sharon," he said. "Please, just 5 minutes." "You don't have 5 minutes, Mark. I lost everything," he said. "Anthony is gone. The board fired him and they're auditing everything. They're blaming me for the consulting fees. They think I was in on it. I'm being sued." "Sharon, I have nothing." I just looked at him. "You have the gym bag you grabbed when you left." "I don't care about the bag," he shouted. "I need help. I need you to tell them. I didn't know. Tell them I was just a pawn. You know me. You know I'm not a thief." "I don't know you," I said. "I don't know the guy who pays a woman $5,000 a month to be his distraction, whilst he steals from his own company. Or the guy who uses our savings to pay for her rent." He started sobbing, just this ugly, snotty mess. He reached out to touch my arm and I just stepped back. I love you, he said. Go away, Mark. I closed the door and locked it. I noticed a smudge on the door handle right after I shut it. Some kind of greasy residue. I spent the next 10 minutes scrubbing it with a sponge and Windex because the thought of his handprint staying on the wood made my skin crawl. About an hour later, Anthony called. He'd finally found a way around the block. Sharon, he said. The polished executive voice was gone. He sounded desperate. I've spoken with my lawyer. We want to settle this quietly. I will give you the house, the full value of the joint accounts, and an additional $2 million in a lump sum. In exchange, you sign an NDA and you retract the embezzlement allegations. We can call it a clerical error. I sat down at the kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee. $2 million, I said. $2 million, cash in your account by Friday. All you have to do is sign the NDA. I don't want the NDA. Then what do you want? I want the $2 million. And I want you to admit in writing, to the board and the city council, that Mark had no part in the financial discrepancies. Not protecting him, Anthony. But I'm not letting Mark take the fall for your theft. It makes the paperwork cleaner for the divorce. You can't be serious, he said. If I admit that I'm the only one going to prison, then I guess you should start looking for a better lawyer. You're just as invested in the firm's reputation as I am, he snapped. I'm not invested in anything except my kids and my bank account, I said. $2 million. The house, the accounts, and the written admission. Or I call the day and tell them I have the original logs. Not just screenshots. There was a long silence. I could hear him breathing. Fine, he said. Fine, my lawyer will send the documents. He hung up. The next few weeks were a blur of PDFs and digital signatures. I almost threw my mouse across the room because the e-signature app kept logging me out every 5 minutes. I just wanted it to be over the day. The money hit my account. I didn't buy a sports car or take a trip. I just went to the grocery store. I remember standing in the aisle and realizing it was just quiet. The noise in my head had finally stopped. When I got home, I had the whack guy come out to fix a thumping sound in the vents. He told me the whole system was old, and I was just patching a sinking ship. But I told him that was fine. I could handle a few patches. I spent the afternoon cleaning out the office. I found the folder with the printed emails from Alina. I didn't feel angry or sad. It just felt like I was looking at a weird piece of history. I put the folder in the shredder and watched it turn into strips. Then I found Mark's old charger under the desk. I didn't mail it back. I just dropped it in the trash. The kids came home from school, screaming and fighting over the iPad. I just watched them. I realized I hadn't checked the location app in 3 days. I didn't know where Mark was. I didn't know where Anthony was. And I didn't care. I finally got the ink replaced, and the return labels were sitting there, clear and crisp. I taped them to the boxes and put them by the front door. I had to go to the store tomorrow to use a coupon for the sneakers. I sat on the sofa and opened my laptop. There was a notification from the shared family calendar for next month. Mark's birthday dinner. I clicked on it and hit delete. Then I noticed a system update notification. I clicked install now and just sat there in the quiet, listening to the house. It wasn't perfect, but it was okay. For the first time in years, the house was actually quiet.